We apologize for that technicality, and welcome to the news at 10 in our headlines this half hour. President Jammeh declares a ban on the age-old practice of female genital cutting as he addressed a mass meeting in his hometown of Kanilai. Gambians react favorably to the presidential pronouncement, with many describing it a significant step in the right direction. French President François Hollande arrives in Washington for talks with his U.S. counterpart, President Barack Obama. Steps to curb the ISIS threat is dominating discussions between the two world powers. And authorities in Mali bolster security measures in the wake of last week's terror attack at a luxurious hotel in Bamako, which left a number of Westerners dead. Well, those are your headlines. With me, WINIFRED NICOL. Thanks for joining us once again. The President, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya A. J.J. Jammeh Babili Mansa, has announced a ban on female genital mutilation in the Gambia. The President made this pronouncement at a mass rally in his hometown of Kanilai. Our Agent Silva was there, and he now reports.
His Excellency Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya Jammeh Babili Mansa made the announcement in his home village of Kanilai, essentially consigning female genital mutilation to history after its widespread practice by certain tribes across the country and Africa to a large extent.
Gone are the days when young Gambian girls, some going to school, some going to kindergarten, will be called one early morning and traumatized for the rest of their lives. Gone are those days. As from today, female circumcision is banned from Katon to Koina.
The President's unwavering stance to end the age-old custom, some say is harmful, demonstrates his resilience and commitment to safeguarding the rights and dignity of Gambian women and girls. President Jammeh deplored FGM, describing it as a sad episode in society's history, as well as a leading cause of serious infectious diseases that affects the well-being of women and girls.
For 21 years, I have seen young Gambian women succumb to cervical cancer. I have seen young Gambian women get married and become barren. All of a sudden they cannot have children. I have seen Gambian women die in labor because of this harmful practice. As from today, that is history. All we have seen is spread of strange diseases, cervical cancer, all sorts of STDs, and worst of all, transmission of HIV/AIDS. And those who are doing it in Ansimba, they don't even know what AIDS is. They don't know what hygiene is. We are going into the bright future. This is the 21st century, and I'm saying it.
Such practices, the President went on, are traditionally inspired and have no religious connection.
For 21 years, I've been researching to see where it is stated in the Quran that this should happen. I've not seen it. It is a traditional practice. And if a traditional practice is harmful, I here ban it. If it was a religious practice based on the Quran, I cannot ban it because only Almighty Allah can do that. But this is not a religious practice and is hereby banned forever.
The Gambian leader, however, called on practitioners to desist from the act or face dire consequences. The Kanilai meeting was by far one of the most thought-provoking moments during the two-week-long tour, as it paved the way for the Gambian leader to hammer home a number of cross-cutting issues taking their toll on society, particularly in the Fonies, where he vowed to clamp down on all forms of evil practices. President Jammeh also promised to reward the unwavering support and loyalty of Gambian women, the youth and students. The Minister of Interior, Usman Sonko, who spoke earlier, implored the people of Fonyi to play a proactive role in the fight against drugs. He reminded them of the existing laws enacted to punish drug offenders, urging the people of Fonyi to remain good citizens. Pa Usman Jajo, the Minister for Environment, Parks and Wildlife and the Climate Change, told the gathering that the President has okayed to provide sufficient water to the people of the area, but, however, emphasized zero tolerance for logging and indiscriminate waste disposal. His colleague Minister Lamin Nyabali, who handles the fisheries portfolio, extended thanks to the president for the measures he introduced to ensure availability of fish for Gambians. Nyabali further disclosed plans to guarantee mass availability and supply of fish countrywide through a new aquaculture project. The National Assembly member for Funi Councillor, Honorable Buba Bojang, Chief Momodu Jaju, and APRC District Women Mobilizer Baturu Sisi hailed the impact of the Vision 2016 in their constituency and thanked the President for providing them with the much-needed amenities. The tour continued Saturday with a scheduled welcoming ceremony to Banjul, which will be followed by a series of meetings next week. Echan Silva, GRTS News.
Gambians have welcomed that presidential declaration to end the age-old traditional practice, with many activists stating that the move will further enhance the promotion of the health of women and girls in the Gambia. Fatoumata Simaha Sise spoke to a number of campaigners, and she has this report.
FGM, one of the major harmful traditional practices in the Gambia, is a deep-rooted culture that has been existing in the country for centuries. This harmful practice has now been declared outlaw by the government of the Gambia. This pronouncement has been welcomed by many as a great move towards ending a practice that has affected the lives of so many women and girls. Activists have worked tirelessly to end in the practice, and this move by the Gambian leader, campaigners say, is hugely important.
I'm still in shock because I didn't see it coming, and I'm sure a lot more activists didn't see this coming at all. It's a great surprise. It's a big surprise in the right direction. For us, the president adding his voice in the fight against FGM means a lot to the activists, means a lot to the women of the Republic of the Gambia.
For me, I woke up to the news, and I think it's the best news. Probably a news whose time has also come. And we want to thank the president for that pronouncement. But much more, I think the next step is also to have a law that would be enforced in both letter and spirit.
Around a quarter of Gambian women have undergone FGM, which experts say can cause infertility, maternal death, infections, and a loss of sexual pleasure, according to 2014 UN data. The practice was already banned in some African countries, and now the Gambia is the latest to pronounce its prohibition.
I believe we as activists, this was something that we were yearning for, to at least have a ban on FGM. Despite it's not the last thing that we can do as activists, we can still go in for a lot of sensitization and create more awareness in our rural Gambia.
We've heard from the president, and so it's unexpected. It was huge. I have to say that one. Last night when I got the message, I was like, the first thing I did was to send it on Twitter. And then people started to tweeting it. And it was a massive statement. But I think generally we can say it's good, very important in the lives of young women and girls and women in general. And then it's one thing we have a pronouncement, but backed up with the necessary legislation.
It's a great move that the president has announced the ban of this FGM, and I believe that in the coming future we will have pure and healthy girls.
For me, I think it's the best piece of news this year, 2015, because the fight against FGM has been on for a very long time, and this is like a landmark development.
Why should somebody who's part of a country's development go through so much pain? So I think it's the right step to the right direction.
With this crucial step by the government, Gambia is setting a precedent for other African countries and the world at large that this old-age traditional practice is harmful and a serious health hazard. For GRTS News, I am Fatoumata Simaha.
Participants, mainly security personnel, are attending a day training on human rights and related issues. The training is organized by the Institute for Human Rights Development in Africa with funding from the British Embassy in Banjul. Rohibite reports.
as law enforcers are very crucial in enforcing and protecting the law. Training them on issues like human rights is deemed necessary to better aid them in the execution of their duties.
We find that a lot of the mistakes, the human rights violation in most countries are because officers sometimes don't have adequate knowledge of some of the human rights responsibilities that they have. And we think that doing this kind of training in the Gambia would make sure that our human rights officers have the adequate knowledge of the human rights responsibilities of whatever law enforcement agency they work for, and that this in turn will trickle down to the citizens and residents of the Gambia who have to deal with them on an individual basis.
This training, funded by the British Embassy in Banjul and facilitated by the Institute for Human Rights Development in Africa, is not the first of its kind, but certainly not the last, as the Institute is bent on training other security officials from various parts of the country. The Institute of Human Rights Development, though based in the country, is also working for Africa as a whole. Their mandate, as explained by its executive director, also includes training.
Doesn't represent victims of human rights violations before courts, but mostly at the regional level. And I'm here talking about the African Commission, Committee of Experts on Children, and the ECOWAS Court. So that's just one aspect of what we do. We educate in the sense we provide human rights training, particularly on African human rights instruments. By that I'm touching on human and people's rights, African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and a host of other instruments. So training for law enforcement, training for judicial officers, and of course training for civil society.
During the 3 days of training, they are expected to be taken through the categories of human rights, its sources and other relevant topics related to human rights, as well as documents to guide them through in the future. This training of security service personnel, according to officials, will help restore the trust people have in the security apparatus.
If they perform their duties as spelled out in the Constitution, as spelled out in the Women's Act, as spelled out in the Children's Act, Domestic Violence Act, and of course the international commitments I mentioned, I told them that would help in, instilling confidence. We would all go around knowing, of course, that we have a police force that is going by what our law says. That would only help in building public confidence, and I know it will help in making things a lot better for everybody in this country.
By the end of this training, participants are expected to be better enhanced for the execution of their duties, as well as their role in protecting the rights of the citizenry. Rohibite, Grts.
The Gambia Armed Forces is invited to participate in the United States Service Academy Foreign Students Program, alongside United States and other international students. The program is targeting grade 12 science graduates between the ages of 19 and 22 years with a WAS certificate who are interested in enlisting in the Gambia Armed Forces. A media release from Defense Headquarters reveals that successful candidates will be sent overseas for further studies through GAF after enlistment. In view of the above application, are invited for suitable qualified able-bodied, physically and mentally fit Gambians for this special enlistment into the Gambia Armed Forces. Prospective candidates must possess the following qualifications. He or she must be a Gambian by birth and between the ages of 19 and 22, must be a purely science student and possess the grade 12 WAS certificate in the science subjects, with 6 credits including English and mathematics, medically and physically fit. Potential applicants are urged to submit their application letters with photocopies of all supporting documents such as school leaving certificates, national identity card, and birth certificates to the Defense Headquarters, Gambia Armed Forces, number 3 Marina Parade, Banjul, not later than Thursday, 3rd December 2015. The Sierra Leonean community in the Gambia Sunday observed an interfaith prayer and thanksgiving ceremony as a means of celebrating the declaration of the end of the Ebola epidemic in Sierra Leone. The event was organized by Rescue Saloon Initiative, an initiative spearheaded by the Sierra Leonean Embassy in Banjul to solicit assistance from Sierra Leonean nationals in the diaspora and friends of the country to help combat the deadly epidemic in Sierra Leone and the Manu River Union at large. Ibrahim Jallo reports.
It was a celebration with mixed feelings among members of the Sierra Leonean community in the Gambia as they gathered to celebrate the end to Ebola in their country and to remember over 3,000 people who died of the disease in Sierra Leone alone. The ceremony began with prayers and was followed by thanking citizens of the country and well-wishers who in one way or the other assisted in the fight against the deadly virus.
It makes me feel so happy as if it has just been announced that is the end of Ebola. Now, what they have just done just made it so real that I can't help but continue to thank our God for always answering to our prayers. The most moving thing about the prayers was the consciousness of those who were praying about the Manu River Union sisters. These countries are joined together by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially Liberia and Sierra Leone.
The Sierra Leonean ambassador to the Gambia, His Excellency Suleiman Drame, took the podium, re-echoing the long-anticipated announcement before the fully packed hall, the end to Ebola in Sierra Leone. Ambassador Drame used the opportunity to thank all those who contributed in the fight against the deadly virus in Sierra Leone. He singled out the Gambian leader, His Excellency Sheikh Professor Dr. Alhaji Ejeji Jammeh Babili Mansa, for donating $500,000 to help contain the deadly virus in Sierra Leone.
I want, on behalf of all of us Sierra Leoneans here in the Gambia and friends of Sierra Leoneans in the Gambia, to express our thanks to him and his team for the fight and the good fight they put up against the deadly Ebola virus disease in Sierra Leone. It is never enough to say thank you. Physically not good. So to say thank you to somebody 10 times over is not enough. And we cannot say thank you to Babili Mansa more than enough. He was the first and only head of state in the whole wide world to donate cash money to Sierra Leone.
It's Sierra Leone to celebrate, but according to Augustine Smith, Secretary of Rescue Saloon Initiative, prayers be to all West African nations that are yet to be free of the disease. It could be recalled that the World Health Organization WHO on November 7th declared Sierra Leone Ebola-free, marking the start of endless celebrations by Sierra Leoneans at home and abroad. The event was attended by a cross-section of Sierra Leonean community and Gambia government functionaries, including the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Minister of Information and Communication Infrastructure, Malik Jones, among other Gambian dignitaries who joined the Sierra Leoneans in the celebration. Ibrahim Jallo, GRTS News.
We will be back with news from outside the Gambia after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The French President, Francois Hollande, has arrived in the U.S. for talks with President Barack Obama. The meeting is part of efforts to launch diplomatic offensive to put together an international coalition to fight against Islamic terror. This, as French police say, an explosive vest was found in the French capital and could be a breakthrough in the hunt for suspect in Paris terror attack. The vest contained materials to that used by suicide bombers. Details in this report.
To increase terrorist threats and warning them to stay vigilant. French President Francois Hollande is continuing his diplomatic efforts to combat global terrorism. On Monday, he met the British Prime Minister David Cameron, who said his country stands shoulder to shoulder with France in the ongoing fight against extremism. Hollande's next stop is Washington. There, he hopes to convince US President Barack Obama that the US-led coalition should start cooperating with Russia and form a united front against the group known as Islamic State. France has already stepped up its military campaign against the group. It's launched its first airstrikes from an aircraft carrier stationed in the Mediterranean. Jets from the carrier have struck militant targets in the Iraqi cities of Ramadi and Mosul in a 7-hour operation.
It is the second day of national mourning in Mali. A state of emergency was declared after Friday's shooting rampage in the capital city Bamako, killing 20 people, including tourists. Mali's government is asking anyone with information on the attack to come forward. The country's president is calling for global collaboration to help fight against terrorism, and Mali is not taking any chance. Security measures have been put in place around the capital, and CNN's David Mackenzie got first-hand look at that.
At a base in Bamako, a French commander readies his men. Montpellier Valois telling his UN police force. On the day of the attack, you helped rescue people from the Radisson. Tonight, you will keep Malians safe. This is a capital on edge, with the UN police joining Malian forces. What's happening tonight?
Tonight, we carry out patrols with policemen.
The joint patrols are a request from the Malian government just days after an 8-hour siege on the country's most prominent Western hotel. Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and another jihadi group claiming responsibility for the killing of at least 20 civilians.
The forensic investigators have marked off the individual bullet holes in the wall. Many of the people killed were here in the lobby section of the hotel, tragically, as they try to get away to the service elevator, and also further up on the 4th floor, other hostages were killed.
The United Nations has been pushing for joint patrols in the capital for years, but politically it was perhaps too sensitive for Malian politicians, but not now, not after the attack.
Armored personnel carriers right in the heart of Bamako, the capital. The UN is used to patrolling in the north of the country, at the front lines of the jihadi threat. But now the threat has come here.
They're chasing possible leads, but tonight is also a show of force. Random checkpoints on a road just outside the city come up with very little. For years, terror struck in Mali's remote interior. Now the capital, no longer a shelter. The sense is it's time to act differently. David Mackenzie, CNN, Bamako, Mali.
We take a second break now. Welcome back, and in sports, FIFA women's football instructor Hope Howell has concluded a high-level training course for top local female coaches from across the country. The former coach of the England women's football team was accorded an emotional farewell at the end of the training seminar. Mamadou S. Jallo was at the FIFA Goal Project Center in Yundum, and he has this report.
An emotionally charged farewell song for Hope Patricia Powell, FIFA technical instructor who spent 5 days training these women's football coaches in the recently concluded FIFA Level 2 technical training course for women coaches in the Gambia. The 5-day training held at the National Technical Training Center was jointly organized by World Football Governing Body FIFA and the Gambia Football Federation. The participants, drawn from women's football clubs and the regional football associations, had their knowledge of the game broadened from the training of the hugely experienced FIFA instructor. The 48-year-old English trainer has a vast experience and knowledge of the women's game. Having had a glittering career as a footballer for both club and country, and former coach of the England women's football team from 1998 to 2013, and the coach of the Great Britain women's Olympic football team at the 2012 Olympic Games. Speaking at the end of the training, Powell reminded the participants of FIFA's massive investment in developing the women's game worldwide.
There's a few things I want to say. FIFA do a lot of work trying to develop more female coaches, more female leaders in women's football. There's currently a leadership development program which Senibu is part of, and I know she's trying to implement some strategies, some concepts that really raises the profile of the women's game. And that's really important. It's how we embrace more women, not just in Africa, but throughout the whole world, to be true leaders in women's football.
The former England vice captain, who admitted having a good time with her trainees, challenged the young coaches to put in extra efforts in their career developments.
I implore you, the decision makers, to help elevate women's football further, number one. Number two, I really want to thank you, the participants. I think you've done really well to a point. I think you can achieve so much more. I think one thing I would say is that this is just the beginning of your journey. I know some of you did the first instructor's course. I think you have to continue your learning. You won't become the best coaches in the world after a five-day program. Determination, and if you really want to be a coach, you will have to start doing some self-learning.
With coaches playing a pivotal role in football development, educating these young coaches will certainly impact meaningfully on women's football, but only if the knowledge gained from this training course is properly utilized. For the participants who were certificated for successfully completing the FIFA Level 2 technical training course, there is no doubt they are loaded with new coaching skills.
Training female coaches to take up what belongs to them because it belongs to us. We only see males coaching in female teams. Now we want to change that. We take care of what belongs to us. So this course is very important in the development of the Gambian football, because if you have to take care of what belongs to you, you will take a good care of it rather than someone taking care of it for you.
I'm having a very young and talented team. The knowledge that I gain from here, I will try to share with them so that they can at least develop their skills.
As they pack their bags and leave the National Technical Training Center, they expect to come back sooner or later for the advanced level. But in the meantime, they have to go back to their various clubs and regions to implement their new coaching skills. Mohamed S. Jallo, GRT Sports.
And before we take leave of you, a recap of the day's main stories. President Jammeh has declared a ban on the age-old practice of female genital cutting as he addressed a mass meeting in his hometown of Kanilai. Gambians have reacted favorably to the presidential pronouncement, with many describing it a significant step in the right direction. French President Francois Hollande has arrived in Washington for talks with his U.S. counterpart, President Barack Obama. Steps to curb the ISIS threat is dominating discussions between the two world powers. And authorities in Mali have bolstered security measures in the wake of last week's terror attacks at a luxurious hotel in Bamako, which left a number of Westerners dead. Well, that was all in this edition of the News at 10. From me, WINIFRED, NICOL, and the entire news team, thanks for the pleasure of your company. Do stay with us and enjoy the rest of our programs.